This is Richard Wolff from Democracy at Work with another Wolff Responds. Let me start this one with a story. In fact, it's a story that appears in many books, novels, articles, movies. Picture this scene: a beggar on the street, perhaps on his or her knees. A wealthy person walking by reaches into his or her bag, pulls out a nickel, and hands it to the poor person, who takes one look at the nickel and throws it angrily on the ground. Why? Because if you do that kind of thing, you not only fail to alleviate the person's need, the beggar's need, you add a disgusting humiliation on top of it. It's almost as if you're saying you're not worth more than 5 cents. That's how I understand the bill just passed by the Congress of the United States, wrongly called a stimulus bill. It isn't. It's a relief bill. Its purpose is to relieve the suffering of the mass of people. The 22 to 23 million minimum that are now getting unemployment compensation, either from the states or from the federal government. The 9 to 10 million facing eviction, according to the Brookings Institute in Washington, at the end of this month. And the countless dependents, families, relatives, and communities that these people influence, live in, and shape. What kind of a system works this way? Let's take a look. 25 million to help people facing eviction. And the eviction moratorium extended from the end of December 1 month to the end of January. Let's assume 10 million are the numbers facing eviction. It's at least that. 25 billion divided among 10 million, that's about $2,500 per household. These are households that have not paid rent, in some cases, for 7 or 8 months. $2,500 won't even pay the money they owe from past months. It's no solution to facing eviction. At the end of January, we'll be right where we are now. The lame excuse of Republicans and Democrats alike that something is better than nothing forgets the humiliation all of this entails, the desperate anxiety about losing your home, having no job to look forward to, no place in this world. Explaining that to your elderly, to your children. That's why the beggar throws the nickel back. This is a system that either cannot or will not deal with the problems of how its economic system is treating people. Facing eviction means that the relationship between the income you earn and the housing you need doesn't allow you to pay for the housing. That's an economic problem. If it were 3 or 4 people, it's something else. But we're talking 10 million households. What in the world is going on? And let me tell you my answer. But before I do, let's take a look at one of the other numbers. $300 extra per week of unemployment for a while. Before July 31st, it was an extra $600. Why would you reduce it when we are now worse off in terms of our economic troubles and worse off in terms of the deaths and cases of COVID. What are you doing cutting it? Let's remember that when it was cut at the end of July, people became desperate because of the little they got. And that meant they used up whatever savings they might have had. They used up whatever credit friends, neighbors, and relatives might have extended them. They are now really at the end of their rope. And by giving them only $300, you know what you're doing, even though you haven't got the courage to say so. You're trying to make the 22 million Americans on unemployment get little enough that they will be desperate enough to take any job at no matter how low a pay. This is the employers pushing the envelope for more profits, hurting no matter how many millions, and the political leadership doing the bidding of their donors. Screw the poor. Screw the people who suffer from COVID. This is a capitalism that is shooting itself in the foot at the enormous expense of the mass of people who will not forget and who will figure out who is doing this to them. It is extraordinary that we are watching a system disintegrate, whether the symptoms are failing to prepare for or contain the virus, failing to prepare for or contain the economic downturn. You know, we have them in capitalism on average every 4 to 7 years. The last one was in 2008. We were overdue with or without a virus, but there was no preparation. So we throw tens of millions out of work, making the crisis of COVID doubly burdensome by adding the crisis of joblessness, of risk of eviction. And the tenants who can't pay mean the landlords get no income. And then the landlords can't pay back the banks. And then the banks can't function and make loans. The system is unraveling. That's what we're living through. Feudalism never recovered from the Black Death. Is this a rerun? Will we look back on 2020 as the year when the virus and the plague signaled the end of capitalism? The bill pushed by the Republicans, accepted by the Democratic establishment, is an awful betrayal of a huge number of Americans who are suffering because this system's level of greed for the few, inequality, is so out of control that it is even becoming fundamentally self-destructive. This is Richard Wolff for Democracy at Work.